another feature on great wellness getaways, and sticking with our theme of how we're all going to be well getting through what is going on right now with the pandemic and the crisis that is facing tourism and hospitality. I'm so thrilled today to have Ingrid Jarrett joining me. She is the president and CEO of the BC Hotel Association. She has an illustrious career in tourism and hospitality, and frankly, there's many of us that think there couldn't be a better leader right now sitting at the helm of the BC Hotel Association. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome my friend and esteemed colleague, Ingrid Jarrett, back to the show. Hi there.
Hi there, Cheryl. Thank you so much. What a warm welcome. I really appreciate that. You're very kind.
Well, you know, you've got quite a fan club. You have to know your leadership with Thompson Okanagan Tourism for years as the chair of the board of directors in helping that beautiful tourism region survive everything from floods and fires to now COVID, and now taking the helm at the BC Hotel Association, which, let's just talk about something kind of fun for a minute. Tell us a little bit about you coming into that position, because I didn't want to share that in the intro, but it's got a cool story.
Yeah, I actually was doing something quite different and was on vacation in Mexico with my feet in the ocean. And the opportunity was presented to me, and I've been involved with the BC Hotel Association for many years, and was sort of a chair of the board, and was a real driver of some of the key strategies that the association has taken on over the last 15 years. But I never dreamt of even considering a role managing association, because I really, my history is tourism and hospitality and economic development, and my brain lives in possibility, and what can we create now, and what do people need. But the more I thought about it, the more excited that I became. So on those long walks on the beach in the morning, I very quickly realized that this in fact could be a calling for me. So I accepted the position and started in February, transitioning out of my other contracts, and landed with both feet on my ground or on the ground on the 7th of March, which happened to be at the tourism conference, most successful in history for the province. And poof, a week later, COVID hit. And now that's 5 months ago, and it feels like a year at least.
Oh, at times 10, I'm sure, some morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we were talking about this with another guest recently, about the fact that last week of March changed the lives of so many, myself included, in the industry. My small boutique agency literally evaporated. The launch of Wellness Travel BC literally evaporated.
Yeah.
However, there's positive energy surrounding that, and I think as we come out, we're going to see some great possibilities, to coin your phrase. But in the meantime, let's talk about what's happening in the industry. Now, the big news recently was the Trump Tower in Vancouver closing down for good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cheryl, we're seeing across British Columbia and across Canada a very dire circumstance for our industry. We were hit first. We had 80% of revenue on the books completely disappear in a 1-week period in March. We did everything we could to provide safe shelter and work directly with government to look after, our supply chain and our first responders and our most vulnerable, and, on so many different levels, every single community in the province. It's been an incredible amount of work that we've done in this short period of time. But what has not happened is that we have not, as an industry, seen the relief that we need from a liquidity or solvency perspective. And because there's been a complete lack of revenue, other than a couple of pockets in July and August, which are summer resort destinations in BC where people from British Columbia always go to, like the Okanagan or some parts of the island, the rest of the province is reeling. And their tax bills are coming in, and even BC Hydro relief or property tax or business tax, or even accessibility to loans through the different federal mechanisms have mostly not been available for the hotel industry. And that's because we're simply very misunderstood as an industry. And so there's an opportunity there if we're talking about opportunities, which is how do we educate? How do we work with the banks or the finance institutes for them to understand that joint ventures and partnerships are actually a normal state of affairs in our industry, and that 82% of hotels in the province are independently owned and operated. And if an accommodator has a brand, that doesn't mean it's big business. It means that that owner has determined that that brand adds value to their business and pay for that brand. The brand, I mean, Marriott Hotels doesn't own one hotel in Canada, where the banks and the government and many other agencies actually believe a brand means it's an independent or an international big business. And in fact, that couldn't be farther from the truth. So a lot of education is required, and we're not there yet, but we're working very hard to educate.
Oh, you are indeed. The weekly newsletters that are coming out and the updates for industry and your membership are timely and encouraging, if I can say that. Even though we're in such dire straits, you are working hard with your team. But I find it interesting when you say, that the banks and the financial institutions are thinking that the brand names have the deep pockets and they should be protecting these independent hotels. You said, I think 82% of the properties in our province are independents affiliated with a brand.
No, that means the ownership structure of it is that they're owned by individuals, not corporations. So we may have a group of hotels in the province, and many of them are interprovincial, but they're a family business. This is your neighbor. This is your coach on the soccer team. This is the person you see in the grocery store. This is not multinational corporations where somebody lives in Geneva or somewhere like that. This is your neighbor that has determined that owning a motel, hotel, lodge, in whatever the form that it might take, is actually a business, and he's an entrepreneur. Many of them also are multi-generation. So we have many third and fourth generation properties in our province, and that are all over the province. And many of them, like the remote lodges or fishing lodges or that kind of thing, or even some of the downtown hotels in some of our cities, are in fact independently owned and operated by families. And so, that is a very different landscape to understand that there is a real humanness around hospitality, not only at the ownership level, but the impact level. When you have something that has occurred right now, this pandemic, our borders are closed. There's no corporate travel. There's no group. There's no weddings unless there's, 50 people or less. There are so many markets that are completely restricted. Even the domestic market right now, although the borders aren't closed interprovincially, there's no marketing happening from our provincial association outside of British Columbia. And, this leads me to speak to, there's a part of the story that I think is really important that we start to connect and we start to discuss. And that is hotels. We have 1,318 accommodators in the province. There is not one case of COVID in a hotel.
Interesting.
Very, very strict protocols. And I can tell you that is the same across Canada. So we have been working hand in hand with health ministers right from the beginning, and work hand in hand with WorkSafe BC too. Yet we are not seeing the consumer confidence around regenerating travel. And so we must ask ourselves, why is that? Why is there this hesitancy? Why is there this fear about sort of getting back to business, potentially in a different way? I think some of us have really enjoyed, a little bit of a slower pace, and have really come to be centered on what's important to ourselves and our family, and, our bubbles, and, really looking after each other in a way that takes a little more care and attention than roaring around the countryside like many of us used to. But this confidence is critical. And the only way we can do it, I think, is by setting the example. So reopening offices, holding people to account for, those things like washing your hand and physical distancing and wearing a mask when you're not able to. They're the most simple things. And they need to be able to provide a confidence. But the only way that confidence will come back is if we're actually out in the world, in schools or in communities or gatherings of one time or one kind or another, so that we can kind of relax a little bit. This doesn't mean it's not an incredibly serious situation, but it does mean that our industry especially really needs to be able to somehow compel people to trust and understand that we have health and wellness first and foremost, and that will to serve and that honor to serve and provide joy and passionate culinary experiences and whatever else those other things are, that we do that very well, and we really need to get back to doing a little bit more of that so our industry can survive, because right now we are looking at double-digit numbers by spring of 2020 that will not be here, and that is just the truth.
And frightening.
And
frightening.
It's heartbreaking.
And to even comprehend that is really tough right now.
Yeah.
As I just want to touch, as you're saying, on the recovery, because I can feel your passion coming through, which is what is one of your most admirable qualities that people respect, because you do have this ability to see past what's happening. And when you're talking about getting the message out, I think, with all due respect, our government bodies, our marketing organizations such as Destination British Columbia have done a great job with the ads encouraging local travel. They're beautiful, they're picturesque, they don't say a lot, but they're at least encouraging people to come out and maybe see stuff that they haven't seen before. But do you think there's a possibility to collaborate more with the media outlets through your organization and a few key people that are involved in tourism and hospitality to take that messaging and of confidence that you're speaking about out to the public? Because honestly, it isn't anywhere. And you're absolutely right, Ingrid, it's nowhere. What would that look like to you?
Well, I'll tell you, we're currently putting a very small group of strategy brains like mine, and that's just where mine, it thrives, on how do we, and the communication strategy, the stories to be told, the human impact, but the due care, that it's okay to have a little bit of fun. It's okay to go out with your bubble or your group and be responsible, but it's okay to let your hair down and to choose destinations maybe you haven't been at before. Also suggesting that our marketing networks around the province have different roles that they can play in strategy and in developing demand. We can't do anything about the U.S. border being closed. And, when we look at all of the indicators for consumer confidence, nobody wants that border open anytime soon. So can we strategically look at, for example, the heli-ski sector, the backcountry ski sector? And can we look at bubble travel in partnerships with our tour experts that are, they've been coming here, they've created this incredible British Columbia experience, and people want to continue to do it. How do we do it safely? And we make sure that those businesses, if we can make up a plan, can stay in business. So many subsectors, I think there's opportunities, but then I think the bigger picture is how do we tell the other side of the story, not just the stats? So every day we hear the stats, how many cases, how many in the hospital, how many, and that's important for people to know, because we need to be careful. But
Well,
the other
especially
side
with
of the
school going
story,
back and all of the elements and the increases.
yeah, the other side of the story is how many people actually traveled in August and or July or whatever that might be, that traveled, they went and all the things that they did, and every dollar they spent, we all know that multiplier effect. So every restaurant, every retailer, every transportation company or winery or wherever they happen to go, and we know what happens with that single dollar per person and what that multiplier effect is. And if we see that we all have an opportunity to contribute to recovery, I think we can do something that really does end up making an economic impact, but saves businesses at the same time and livelihoods for people who work in the industry. We're not there yet, but I do think that there's many opportunities. We just need to uncover them, and then we need to be careful about the way we communicate them. So there
So
can't
a
be self-serving. Is
positive
what?
angle,
Yeah.
and remaining optimistic that we can come out the other side and that the sun is going to shine tomorrow. And
Yes.
while we're all in this together, we will recover together. That's a
Yeah.
common theme I've been hearing from all of my guests, and yourself is no exception, that it's the collaboration and the discussion that's needed at this point in time, isn't it?
I think so, Cheryl. And different areas of the province need different things. Downtown Vancouver, that is a very serious situation. All of those markets, YVR, it's the entry point for the province for so many different markets.
Mm-hmm.
And so the rest of the province is not hit quite so dire. Victoria is again as an urban center, and the attractions, oh my goodness, like these attractions that have been purpose built for many, many people to visit daily, they can't afford to keep their doors open. Those hotels downtown Vancouver, I know what it costs to reopen one of those after being closed. It's not a small amount of money. And so, I think part of this strategy is really looking at sectors, locations, geography, what the regions are doing from their analysis and strategy perspective. And it's about partnerships, building partnerships where we can get different voices out through different avenues, and that we can do it in a purposeful, meaningful, thoughtful way. So it's not just about let's get back to work and get the economy roaring down the road again and everything will be great. It's not about that. I don't think anything will be quite the same. And I do think that we need to be a little bit more careful about the way we do business and how we make sure that when people are coming, they're not fearful, and that our neighbors are okay that we have travelers in our communities that are from different places.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean just because you have a different license plate that you should be fearful of those people. And I do think there's a lot of work to do around communication.
And I couldn't agree more. One of the points that comes to mind while you're saying this, when you're talking about downtown Vancouver and Victoria for that matter, the hotels, do you see an opportunity, and is it worthwhile based on your experience as a former hotelier, to open most of these hotels as they stand right now, to engage the local community, but at much lower rates than are being publicized? I had several people comment to me throughout the summer that they were just astounded at the published rates to stay in a downtown Vancouver hotel. And as a local, they'd love to go into the city, stay overnight. Some of the theaters are open now. The arts club is thriving, restaurants, etc. But they were looking at the hotel rates and saying, "Oh my gosh, this is in my backyard. I'd go up to a resort in the Okanagan. I'll go to Vancouver Island. I'll go to the Sunshine Coast, but gosh, I'm not going to pay $300 to $400 a night for a hotel room in downtown Vancouver." So
Mm.
it begs the question, is it worthwhile when the hotels are operating only with most of them 50 to 60% capacity of rooms available at any given time? Can they survive if they stepped back with the rates? And
No.
they can't, can they?
Yeah, you know, the challenge is Vancouver is operating between 20 and 30% occupancy, not 50. And we have a forecast to the end of the year by region. And the entire province by December for the year 2020 will be at about 32% occupancy. And that includes the 90% occupancies from the Okanagan and Tofino and the island. So what is important to note about Vancouver is the hotels have not been given any relief. No property tax relief, no business tax relief, no BC Hydro relief. We have a 46-room hotel that has been closed for 3.5 months, and they just got a $32,000 BC Hydro bill. They have no revenue, none. So we also have another hotel that is a perfect example of an independent downtown hotel. They pay 50% of their property tax on Jan 1, and they pay 50% in July 1. That's now been extended until September 30th. But their property tax for half a year is over $500,000, and they're operating at 30%. So should there be relief measures, hotels, if they could afford to reduce their rates, they would. But I can tell you, every benchmarking company in the world will tell you that dropping rate does not create demand.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the whole idea about being okay to pay $400 for an Okanagan property and not a downtown Vancouver property is just an example of how probably our online travel agents have educated people around what they should expect from a rate. So we could sell, the last 10 years, the Okanagan as an example, we could sell out 4 times, but there's only so many properties. So it doesn't matter what your rates are, you're going to be full because that's where people want to go. In Vancouver, historically, what really supported the growth of the industry in Vancouver was all the international and corporate demand. You know, that conference center, my goodness, it's built for thousands of people. It's empty. The cruise ships, you know, 3,000 to 6,000 people a day coming in with the cruise ship. There is zero. You know, you look at YVR stats, there's, you know, a fraction of, I was just at YVR the other day and I just couldn't believe it. It was like, wow,
I know.
this is empty. I stayed in a downtown Vancouver hotel last week and I can tell you, I saw very few people in that hotel.
Yeah.
Can't afford to be selling their rooms for a couple $100.
Well, but it also
begs fixed costs.
And you're so right. But on the other hand, where's the market that's going to support that? You know, it's getting that market across the country, since our borders aren't open, that will engage in that. And I think it goes back to communicating the message and having a major campaign out there.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think it's very important to generate domestic travel from across Canada to help urban centers. And I think it's very important that we continue to do the work on lifting that 50-person limit for our meetings. You know, 50 people meeting in a hotel room or a hotel conference room that is purpose-built with the HVAC, which is, you know, the air system, the entry and exit, the escalators, the washroom banks of 30 washrooms and pre-crush areas where you could fit 400 people and you have 50 people in that meeting room. We need a lot of meetings for 50 people for them to even keep the lights on.
But that goes back to messaging again.
It does. It does. And I think it comes down to strategy as well.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to be doing is making sure that we show that we can meet safely without risk.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're in a state of emergency, which means the Minister of Health and our Chief Medical Officer is calling the shots. And that's because we're in a pandemic. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to strategically show that we can meet safely, whether 50 people or 100 people or 200 people. How do we make sure we contract trace and that there's physical distancing and people stay in the same seats and we use technology in a different way? But as long as we have those kind of limitations, we're going to see more and more and more hotels not make it because they can't afford, they can't afford to lose more money than they already are. And that's just the state of the nation.
And it's a sad fact because then there's all those people put out into the marketplace, as there are right now, many who haven't been brought back.
Yeah.
For the last several months with having been laid off, many who are never going to be able to come back and return. I think the entire landscape of employment is going to be dramatically different. How do you feel about 2023? Do you think that's a possibility for recovery?
I do. I actually am, ever the optimist. I'm hoping that 2021, between now and 2021, we're going to be able to show what we can do very well and very safely, and we're going to move into a recovery mode. I think 2021 and 2022 are going to be very difficult years because of the increased debt and burden that properties are going to have to hold, with a limited amount of recovery revenue. 2023, fingers crossed, we can actually see a little bit of black in the monthly statements, not red. Because there's so much capacity for debt. And, financial institutions only have so much time that they're going to allow debt to grow or not be paid back. So, I am hopeful that 2021, we're going to start seeing a recovery. But to your point about employment, Cheryl, we came out of the worst labor shortage that we've ever experienced. The last 5 years, we've been short, just in British Columbia, over 20,000 positions were left unfilled. We now have a situation where 30% of our workforce is estimated completely tied into the group, corporate, conference market. So if we look at what happens if we can regenerate that market and start increasing those numbers and do it safely, it means that 30% has an opportunity to start coming back to work. Mm-hmm. We also have about 30% of the workforce in the province that is, working holiday visas, student internships. We've worked so hard on bringing foreign workers in because there was such a shortage of Canadian workers for the industry. So there is an opportunity as we grow to bring the British Columbia employees back as we rejig our businesses, especially that conference side. That's culinary, food and beverage, banquets, catering, the sales teams right now, my goodness, what are you selling? So, I think over time we're going to see that we'll be able to regenerate that part of employment as well.
Very encouraging. Very encouraging. Mm-hmm. On another level. So as we wrap up, this has been so inspiring in a way, because I always feel there is, like I say, a light at the end of the tunnel. And speaking with someone like yourself, I know you've got that passion to lead it. But just tell us as we wrap up, because you mentioned health and wellness of everybody earlier in our conversation. What have you been doing to keep well through all of this? How's Ingrid stay sane?
Well, I live in a beautiful area in the Okanagan, very close to a canyon. And so I do quite a bit of hiking. I do quite a bit of biking. I walk my dogs with my children because they're all home, working, going to university, studying from home. I'm sure glad that's not me. But the thing that we're doing right now is we're actually getting back to the office. So our team, and I really believe this is part of health and wellness, is that connectivity that we have with others. I spend my day on Zoom calls, and we just held our board meeting in July purposefully in Vancouver at a hotel. And we allowed that hotel to do all the protocols around meeting safely. And for our board to get together and, the brain trust in one room, and we did a strategy session, and I can tell you, everybody was so relieved that they were together as humans in a room. And I think that's an important part of wellness.
It
And,
certainly
and
is.
if we're going to talk about regenerating our business and our economy, we need to reopen our offices. And yes, we might operate in a different way. Yes, technology has stepped in and changed some of the ways that we communicate. But there is nothing like being able to go to the office next door and actually discuss that position paper that you're working on, or that new strategy for, a certain part of the province or something. So I think two things. One, I'm blessed with an amazing family, and I've had amazing 5 months of beautiful meals and lots of laughs and good hikes and things like that. But the other side of it is, it's time to reconnect. It's time to be together, to acknowledge the work that everybody's doing, and to be able to do that in person is just, it's just not the same on a Zoom call. It's just not. If you and I were sitting in the same room right now, Cheryl, we'd probably be having a glass of wine and we wouldn't be finishing in 2 minutes here.
Oh, and you're so right. And I couldn't agree more. I am hearing this constantly, and I think we're all feeling it. We are
Yeah.
human, and we
Yeah.
do need that sense of touch. And I'm like you, girlfriend. I'd love to be sitting in a hotel lobby bar with you right now, discussing this.
Yeah.
And to your point, we're hoping that we're going to be able to bring this back, but we're just not there yet. So
No, but we'll get there.
we
That's
will.
the whole thing now is, yes, we're going to get there. How are we going to do it? And how are we going to support the people that need help to get there? And there will be those people that need support. And I think it's the old one, it takes a village, and we are the village. And I think that self-responsibility takes many forms. One of them is making sure that you follow all the right rules around COVID. And the other one is paying attention to the people that are in our circles and in our spheres, making sure that we in fact are paying attention and supporting as they need us to.
Well said, my friend. Thank you, Ingrid Jarrett, President and CEO of the BC Hotel Association. Divine pleasure, as always. Please stay safe and keep doing what you're doing. We'll
Thank
talk
you, Cheryl.
soon.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay.